cloud. Hopefully that's right. I record to the cloud. Is that right, Kamori? I think that's right. Okay.
Yeah, that's right.
Yep. All right. So welcome, everyone. Welcome. It's good to see all your smiling faces, or for those people who have yet to log into their video. I'm going to, I made an executive decision. I'm going to do without PowerPoint, thinking that it might, we'll see, it might allow for us to have a better conversation, and that's what this is about. And so I'm pretty good at, checking the time. First of all, I want to apologize to everyone. I know we had a little bit of confusion with Zoom links. I don't know what happened. I think it might either Zoom gremlins or something else, but we had, I think everyone knows, we had a reoccurring meeting, Zoom link for all of the coffee sessions leading up to last week. And for some reason, it got deleted. And so when people tried to log in, it said the meeting no longer exists. So Kamori is on for a little bit, and she has agreed to check my email just because I was convinced. There you go. We got at least one email, Kamori. I knew it was going to happen. People saying they can't access it. I was, anyway, some things I do know. Anyway, so I want to say, I apologize for any confusion. The good news is you're on, so that's good. Second thing I do want to say, and I think everyone knows this, but I am not a certified diversity consultant. I'm not. I have colleagues that are, and I thought about inviting them to join us, but I thought, I'm a fairly experienced organization development consultant, and I can facilitate dialogue. And I thought, as long as people, obviously I have strong opinions on this, I do, and I'm willing to offer them for anyone who asks. But I just want to say that at the beginning, that I am not an expert in this domain of diversity, inclusion, and I imagine between myself, Susan, Carol, and others, we know people who do that. That's just not me. Yeah. But I'm willing to have the conversation. As long as people are cool with that, we'll proceed. Yes? Give me a reaction. Give me a smiley face or an applause if you're cool with that, or a thumbs up. Excellent, excellent. So if you remember, and I don't know if Matthew Cardin, Kamori, you should definitely email Matthew because he started this whole shenanigans. If you remember last time, it was about at 9:59, I think, 9:58 maybe. And so we were wrapping up the session on stress management, and Matthew says, hey, look, our leaders are facing with stressors, including me, that I haven't had to deal with in the workplace before. And that involved dealing with this whole issue of race relations in our country and what's going on. And so literally it was at, I think, 9:58, 9:59. And so I said, okay, I don't disagree with that at all. In fact, that's what led us to send an email to some of our clients. And so we continued the dialogue for another 20 minutes. And then we said we'd have another session today. So I thought, again, I decided to go without PowerPoint just because I thought it might be better just have a conversation and not be encumbered by the PowerPoint slides. So I recall some of our conversation, but I thought maybe a good place to start is what stressors, are you experiencing about race relations, or B, your people facing race relations, or there are some of my colleagues on the phone, are your clients' experience about race relations? And let's start there. And then there's some other questions I'll ask, and if someone has a question that you want to ask the group, I'm okay with that as well. So let's start there. What stressors are either A, you experiencing, B, other people in your organization experiencing, C, your clients are experiencing, related to this whole issue of of racism in our country?
I'm going to go ahead and start.
Yeah.
I'm the career counselor here. Don't
Yes.
do leadership. I have a client who is Black who is so upset by the world around her that she is not able to concentrate on her work, and she's also not able to advocate for herself at work. And if you know a little, well, I work in the federal field, and you have to be able to advocate. You've got to be politically savvy. You've got to be able to advocate. And she is just like not handling it.
Yeah.
And my job is going to be to help her to handle it. My heart breaks for her.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyone else, Claire? So Matthew, I know you're on the line, and I everyone can say I invoked the words of Matthew Carden, who at 9:58 last time raises this issue. So it's all your fault, big fella, in a good way, in a good way, in a good way. So the question, so I decided, Matthew and Roberta, I'm not sure that you were on from the beginning. So I decided to go without PowerPoint today, just have a dialogue. And Matthew, you know this, I'm not a diversity expert. That's not my area of expertise, but I thought I could facilitate a discussion. So the question is, what stressors are you, A, experiencing yourself, B, seeing other people in your organization experience, or C, if you've got clients, seeing them experience related to what's going on in our country relative to racism, race relations, etc.
So Ken, I'll jump in. We just came off we have a couple things that diverged at the same time, or converged, I should say. We just came off a hiring several staff on board, and we have a reasonably representative, diverse workforce in our location here in Denver, but our hiring practices give us very little flexibility to actually target and do targeted outreach and bring people into the mix. So staff were already not particularly pleased with some of the outcomes that we had for hiring, and then the rest of this started up, and now we've just started, and in fact in about 2 hours we'll be telling people about coming back to work. So the stacking of all of this, any kind of typically we have some pretty open and pretty frank conversations. The stress levels of staff right now in dealing with all of this has changed the dynamic of those conversations significantly, and to a point where you just don't know what you're going to end up with in the conversation. So I think that's got everybody on edge a little bit in a different way.
Yeah. Thank you, Kathy. And thank you, Carol. Anyone else? Or we're good? Matthew, you're muted, big fella.
I was actually just moving my lips. I wasn't really talking. We're having something very, very similar to Kathy's experience. That our senior leader, they've had some pretty frank conversations at the executive level that have gotten kind of emotional. And from that is the feeling that I need to go out and do something. So it's kind of a knee-jerk reaction. So what I want to do is, so they reached to us, the staff college, can you provide somebody to facilitate? I'm going to go out and have a listening tour to everybody and learn and try to understand the experiences that our underrepresented folks are having.
Yeah.
And I don't want to pay for an outside facilitator. Let's just kind of do something quick. And it starts reeking of, I'm just going to kind of go through the motions a little bit to kind of maybe we'll just get this over with.
Yeah.
So no one is questioning the sincerity, but the optics are just horrible. And so we've suggested just hold off. Let's put a more comprehensive plan together that is putting in we are recommending putting in structural pieces. So instead of just doing a one-time listening tour, put something where we're always listening. And then that body of influencers who already have influence with the rest of the organization can recommend changes. Kind of going that, because the upper echelon does not have, it's not like people don't talk about racial problems in our organization. They talk to somebody. They're just not talking to the senior leaders.
Right.
And the senior leaders feel like they have to do something. Well, we have to, I believe, capture who already is trusted in the organization and get the ideas from them, and then sincerely act on those that we can act on. Instead of senior leaders thinking they have the answers and are going to enforce the answers. That one of the comments that came back that was pretty stinging was, our senior leader put out a short video where she was reading from a script, and all that did was just cause more angst in the organization.
Yeah.
And
Matthew, can I interrupt you?
Yes.
I have a feeling I know why. Why do you suppose that did?
Well, one of the comments that came from that was, it is not the organization's responsibility to train a senior leader on racial issues inside of her or organization. Like, don't come to me and ask me to relive something just so you can have a better understanding. So it's in that little loop a little bit.
Yeah.
So that is the issue that I'm understanding. So I go to a white church with a black female pastor, and we have Bible study on Tuesday mornings. And she said she's hurting. Nobody has come to ask her anything about how she's hurting. She said that what's going on today is extremely painful if you happen to be black. And I thought to myself, that's right, you're the shepherd. We're not thinking about you. But indeed, we should be thinking about her. And indeed, this is the situation we find ourselves in. We have to do something. And maybe it's not the organization's responsibility. So then it's no one's responsibility. It has to be someone's responsibility. I don't like to use that word, but somebody has to speak up and somebody has to say something. And it's very important that new message get out, that this is everyone's problem. And if we are no better than the least of us. So I'm going all Bible now, but full out Bible, right? But we are our brother's keeper. We cannot live independently. We enjoy the fruits of racism. It's just not a good idea.
Right. Hey, Matthew, can I ask you another question?
Sure.
I thought I understood what you were saying, but I'm not sure. Are you saying that the black people at FDA, they don't feel like they want to take the time, or it's not their place, or it's uncomfortable or hurtful for them to have to explain to white people what gives with all this racism stuff? Is that what you're saying, or is that not?
So I think it's a balancing act.
Yeah.
The folks that I've talked to, and I said, I've got a small pool that I talked to.
Right.
I think they want white people to be involved in this solution, right? But they want them to listen. But what they don't want to be is paraded into a conference room and say, let's go around the board. Tanya, can you please share me your experiences of racism through your life so that I can have a better understanding of what that is?
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I thought you said. So one of the things, two things. One, I think to everyone who's here, and if you didn't, just you can text me, email me, or call me. I sent, I think, to all of you the resource that Kathy Ferguson sent to me, and then I believe Elizabeth sent another document. I'll send that out. And Matthew, to your point, I have read a couple of articles on that specific subject, that Black people, just saying, hey, look, it's just too painful. I don't want to have to relive all this crap so that you can be more enlightened. I'm just not that, I don't want to do it. It's just too painful. And if you want to get educated, you figure out some other way to do it. So if people are interested in that article, you can give me a thumbs up and I'll send it out to people. And again, if people have read other articles, just let me know and I'll send them out to everyone on the call. But Matthew, I did think I've read at least a couple of articles on that very subject that I thought were interesting. And again, I can understand to some extent a senior leader saying, hey, I want to better understand what people are up against. The flip side is, if you're a white guy, it's you can't understand how painful this is for, either an African American male or female at this point.
And if I could add a few cents, I mean, it's not
Yeah,
just that it's frustrating, but it's also exhausting. So I am biracial. My name kind of gives that away if my skin tone doesn't. And I get asked a lot, just what are you, right? And I don't mind the first couple times, but it happens again and again and again. So in this situation, talking to my Black friend, they're tired of having to explain their experiences to 15 different people who have no clue what it is. And even if you explain it, you're still never going to understand it. And so I had a friend of mine who's an advisor and he's Black, and he said, it's like childbirth. A man will never understand what it means to give birth, right? You can see it, you can empathize, sympathize, go through it with your wife or whatever, but you'll never fully understand. And that's sort of similar to what we're talking about. You can sympathize, empathize, march, but I can never fully explain to you what it's like to fear interactions with police, to be searched and pulled out of cars and be treated as, guilty as sin as soon as you get, I have a healthy fear of police officers. I was raised that way. My interactions have led me to live that way. When I meet white people or friends of mine who have zero fear, it amazes me. But no one really is ever going to understand that until you've lived those experiences. And my wife didn't. My wife is Caucasian. She didn't understand it until she sat in the car with me one time and saw it happen in front of her. And then she understood. And I think that's what we're talking about is we've had these conversations so many times with our peers, with our coworkers, and it gets exhausting. On the flip side, though, I also feel responsible to have these conversations. Most of my clients are Caucasian, 60s and older, right? And so a lot of conversations start out around where I'm from, what's going on. I was raised Muslim, and what does that mean? And it's, if you're not willing to have the conversation, you're never going to change people's point of views. So there's a balancing act or a line you got to kind of walk to be fair to the people who are asking you, but also people who are asking you to be fair and understand why it can be exhausting to have that conversation.
Gotcha. So another question I had is, I have thought about this a lot during the past couple of weeks. One of my friends posted something on Facebook that highlighted all of the specific things that have been done relatively quickly. Obviously some police departments and localities. you know, that have acted really quickly, or NASCAR making a decision they're going to remove any symbols of the Confederate flag, etc. I'm just wondering, at what point did you personally, did the events over the last couple of weeks, at what point did it hit you, and you know, what have been some of the challenging moments or stressors that you've experienced over the last couple of weeks?
So I have a biracial child.
Right, right.
He's male.
Mm.
I had to learn how to from a good friend who taught me with the kindness of intention how to raise a black male child. My friend happens to be black, and she too is tired of the questions. But I had to have that conversation with him about police stopping you, that, you know, that conversation that every black family has with their children about where to put your hands and how to behave if the police stop you. And who knew, as a white person, who knew I had to learn how to parent a young black male? Oh my goodness, the challenge was huge, but I was willing to learn, and I was so blessed to have a friend who was willing to teach me. And that's why I think it's so important that this message has to be, well, the conversation has to be had, kudos to Ken, and the message has to go out that everyone has to know and understand what it's like to have black skin in this country. And I think one of the most telling things that I read was someone said in a conversation, how many here would choose to be black? And not one person raised their hand.
Yeah.
Because deep down inside, we know.
Right.
It's better. White is better. And I'm not saying it to mean it, but to say that that is the social norm in this country.
I think too, it's really bringing into clarity where you stand on the issue, and really helping, or at least he's forcing people to reevaluate their relationships, right? Because some people are falling on the wrong side of this, and you were friends before, or colleagues, or clients, and you know, we get talking about this, and I started to find that, oh, you really feel this way. I don't want to be around that. So it's really interesting. I will say, I am happy about the progress corporate America is making. I do feel some of it's superficial, and kind of I have to make these statements because it's just what it's supposed to say. I'm supposed to say something at this point. But for those who are recognize that if you don't grow up with a healthy fear of the police, that's white privilege, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. It's how you were raised. And that's what I think the conversation needs to be, is people have an understanding of their privilege, but also people who don't have that to understand that if you don't know any better, if you weren't raised to know better, it's not our job to educate you, but it is important to have that conversation. And the best example I have, and I don't mean to hijack the conversation here, is one of my clients referred his mother to me. Well, she's 80 years old, and she grew up in South Virginia. As soon as she found out I was raised Muslim, we had a 3-hour conversation of why I'm not here to kill Americans, and Obama's not, was American, and not, it was this crazy, outlandish conversation. But she literally, her world was Fox News and what she saw on Facebook, which, as we know, can bring you down a rabbit hole that's only giving you news that feeds your, sentiment. So having to broaden her horizons was a conversation we had. And I had to realize that that's just how she was raised, and it really wasn't her fault. She's a beautiful woman, very sweet, very loving, great client, and we have great conversation. But that's just how she was raised.
Yeah, yeah. I'm wondering, anyone who hasn't said anything yet, I'm just curious to get other people's reactions at what point, and it's okay if they haven't, but I would imagine well, I'll say it's almost impossible to believe, but possible that people just haven't been impacted by either watching the news or talking to other people. I'm just wondering other people's reactions to what's transpired over the last couple of weeks and how you're feeling and what you're struggling with.
And I have to go to work, so I'm not leaving just to leave. I'm leaving because I got to go to work. Bye.
All right. Thanks, Carol, as always.
Thanks, Carol. Yeah. And
So this is Celeste. I'm sorry I'm in as Kumori, but that was the link that worked for me this morning.
No worries.
Good morning. And I'm calling from Canada. So
Yeah.
we have a different view of what's going on. We have our own issues up here, as you probably have noticed from the news. I don't know how much Canadian news you get to absorb, but we do have a lot of American news up here. And what I'm understanding is that it's not just about whether we have those conversations, because as she said, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, they're exhausting and they're scary to have because you don't want to make a mistake and insult someone or hurt someone further. You want to be sensitive. But I think the problem is that we're not standing up with our government leaders. We're not voting for people who eradicate, eradicate the poverty that is the underlying cause for Black people, not only in your country, but in our country. So finding ways to take that action so that we're being anti-racist in every aspect of our lives, not just hiring people of color, not just having an open heart, but actually voting and pressuring our governments to eradicate the poverty that is the problem at the root of it. And you may have started out with this, but I was late to join. So, you know, being that kind of, and taking it as a corporate viewpoint, we are standing up against inequalities in wages, in housing. I did an apartment viewing yesterday, and the lady, it was a brand new building, very luxurious, unfortunately way beyond my price point. And she says, we're only getting the right people in here. And I walked away afterwards, and in the moment, I thought, I kind of giggled about it, not thinking in the moment. But after I left and I remembered what she said, I thought, the right people, what do you mean? Like, and how the superintendent of the building is a retired cop. I'm going, well, that's not a selling feature right now. So, you know, calling people out for things that they're not even conscious of. So that's my Canadian viewpoint right now. Thank you for hearing me.
Thanks, Kumori. I'm in Celeste. I'm kidding. All good. Robert, Tom, Elizabeth-ish.
That's Tom.
Yeah.
Several random observations. A couple of them for understanding. Several years ago, I had the opportunity to read Martin Luther King's Letters from Birmingham Jail, which I found to be very compelling and a great example of grace in the midst of extreme injustice. So if you have not had a chance to read that, I would commend it to you. Second observation, I heard recently on the radio an interview with a senator from South Carolina. Unfortunately, I've forgotten his name. He is Black, has served in the Senate, and he was describing his experience on a fairly routine basis of being stopped simply because he's Black. And as I heard that, I thought, this is terrible. I also have some examples that give me hope. one of our team members is black, and we had a staff meeting last week. And he said, I just want you guys to know that I really enjoy being on this team, and I have never sensed racism in the way that you guys have treated me, which I really appreciated.
That's great.
Another perspective, I'm in Toastmasters, and in Toastmasters, our core values are respect, integrity, service, and excellence. And I have really seen that played out. Many of the people in leadership in Toastmasters are black, excellent speakers, excellent leaders, and it has been my privilege to serve as a division director this year. And I consider people in Toastmasters to be my family. One other item of hope, as far as stressors go, the stress of figuring out how we're going to come back and open things up after COVID-19. Our administrator has done an excellent job of saying we're going to open up based not on a date, but on the data. And we will not be in a rush to open up. The safety of our employees is our top priority.
That's great. That's great.
And,
hey, Tom.
and one other area of hope has been my church family, where we have a mixture of races, and we all come together. They have shown amazing love and care for each of us. So.
That's great. So I thank you for sharing, Tom. So I looked at my clock. It's 10:02. So I have a 10:30. If people, if you got to go like Carol did, just go. I know no harm, no foul. If you want to stick around another 20 minutes, I'm okay. Again, it's all Matthew's fault. At 9:58 last time he raised this issue, and I just thought it didn't seem possible that we could do it justice in 10 minutes. So I was, every time I do one of these, I always learn something myself. And so I'm willing to stick around, for another 20 minutes if people want to. And if you want to, great. And if you need to go, no harm, no foul. I will send out to everyone. There are a couple of articles. And if people didn't see it, I would encourage all of you. Did anyone see the CNN special Saturday night? If you didn't, I think I can provide a YouTube link. They had, I forget the woman's name. She's African-American. She was the hostess of the event. And they interviewed a number of people, some of them were other reporters who were African-American who, had experienced racism themselves. Either they would go into stores and people would think they're shoplifters, or, as Zabe talked about, they had been stopped by policemen in their cars. If you didn't see it, I would encourage you to check it out. I thought it was great. Elizabeth, Roberta, Elizabeth, anything you want to say or contribute?
I think that one of the things that came to mind for me immediately when this happened, and anytime it happens and it's it's big in the news, I have several friends who are either in both biracial relationships and marriages and have biracial children. And then another friend of mine who adopted a African-American son. And so they're grappling with how to deliver right now the news, how to, not the news, but how to, raise a biracial or a Black son as a white mother. So, I think about them and, and what they're going through and, just how that works. The same thing that Carol went through.
Yeah.
So, it's different. I feel for them. And the other thing is, my team is, the team that I work with, it's really mixed, a really diverse team. And the other day, we just, during our division meeting, we stopped and instead of really just discussing work, we really had a really in-depth conversation about, how are we feeling about what's going on. And it was really good. It was a really, really good conversation. It needed to happen. So those are just some of the things. Obviously, people our emotions are pretty raw. So.
Absolutely.
I'd like to think that we need to have more conversation about actions that will take us to another place. A lot of the conversation this morning seems to me has revolved around individuals and emotions. And as important as that is and always will be, it seems to me the issue is bigger and broader. It's an institutional issue. What do we need to do in our institutions so that we can improve the kind of relationships that we want to have or that we believe we should have? There are no magic bullets. Every organization is going to do what they're going to do. Matthew gave a great example of what is about to take place at his job. I thought that was pretty cool. But until we get some, I don't know, do we need lists? I don't know. We do need conversation, but how about a list of action items? Is anybody working on action items, potential action items that we can take besides defunding the police? So, and Ken, this is an aside. This is a monster issue, and I know how busy you are, but I think it would be cool if we got together every 2 or 3 weeks for this half hour, because this is not one of those, it's not how to do PowerPoints or how to do stress management.
It's funny you say that. I'm trying my best to stay in the moment. And at the same time, it's pretty clear that this is much bigger than a bread box. And so I can't always say it, but on this one, I was 2 steps ahead of you, trying to think about what can we do, as a small company, what's the right thing to do. So I will noodle that, and I'll come back to all of you with some thoughts about, is there something that we might, do that could be a little support group or discussion group on this issue? Because again, I obviously, if I didn't think that we're going to solve the issue of race relations in our country in 30 minutes or 45 minutes. That's just not possible. But I do think, Elizabeth, to your point, I'll just speak for me. So hearing you, Elizabeth, speak about this has caused me to rethink what I'm going to do this Friday with my team.
Mm-hmm. And if I could just say to Robert's point, I agree. I totally agree. It's a systemic issue. Racism is systemic, and there needs to be systemic change. And how we go about doing that is is from a systemic, you know, there needs to be systemic change, not just at the police level. It has to happen everywhere. You know, poverty is part of the problem, you know, and how do you fix that? So there's issues everywhere. So, you know, I mean, it's just a systemic, it's been going on for 400 years. So it's a huge issue. And how do you fix it? You're right. There needs to be actions. And it's just a gigantic issue. And there needs to be leadership at the top that's willing to take it on in a real way.
Yeah. Elizabeth.
Hi guys, I'm Elizabeth Duncan Hawker. So I see we got two Elizabeths here today. This is such a wide range of emotions. So stressors that I'm currently experiencing, and because we keep talking about the police, is last summer, our daughter came to us, and she is one of the kindest, most loving, non-judgmental. She's the type of person that you want to have in your communities as a millennial. I think several of you know Liz Jr. She came to us with a dilemma. She shared with us that she had the call to serve. And she is graduating June 19th on Friday from the Virginia Beach Police Academy. This should be a time of just honor and excitement, and we should be so proud. And I got to tell you, as a parent right now, it's very hard because everybody's comments about the police is not favorable right now. So back to Robert's point about action, one of the best things I could recommend from being through this and trying to be very supportive when your child comes to you and says, I want to serve. And I mean, she has been tased and maced and beat up, and the boot camp that they put them through in the academy. Let me tell you guys, this young woman has been black and blued. Okay, so what they do to take these police and put them through there so that they can be out there to protect and serve us is real. And so my suggestion would be, as far as an action item, is to let's try to encourage more of the right type of people, like my daughter. And her boyfriend is actually a firefighter, and he has been dressed out in the gear for 3 months fighting COVID. His brother is a policeman in the Virginia Beach. My other daughter's fiance is a policeman in Norfolk. I mean, and my daughter, my youngest daughter, is an EMT driving an ambulance for free. She serves for free to do that because, so that I come from a whole family here in Virginia Beach of first responders. And I would say to you is spread the word that when these young folks are trying to figure out where they want to be, and if they're the right types of people, meaning their hearts are good, they treat people fairly, they've been raised to believe that everyone is equal, encourage them to be a server, encourage them to be our people that are out there, because that will make change. I know it's not the immediate bullet, and I'm probably talking too much today, but I wanted to share this with you because I'm not hearing people say that. Encourage these young millennials that are the right, healthy, happy, adjusted people that love people and want to treat them the right way. They're the ones who need to be in the world and in these powerful law enforcement positions. Was that helpful?
All good. Elizabeth, quickly, one of my best friends in the world is the second highest ranking attorney for the New York City Police Department. So he's been in the police department forever. So if she wants to talk to someone who has been on the front lines and is now, a senior executive in a police department, let me know. Happy to make the connection. I know we've got 4 minutes left. I have a few questions I want to run by everyone before we sign off. Tom, did I interrupt you before? And if I did, did you want to say anything? And if I did interrupt you, I apologize. Can't hear you.
Thank you. Well, one other thing, I had the opportunity to present crucial accountability to a group of frontline managers, a brief overview of it. And the ability to have difficult conversations in a positive, respectful way is a skill that I think is very much needed, and it seemed to be appreciated. So,
That's great.
And I had another experience in Toastmasters with being on the guidance committee for a major project for a Toastmaster in Uganda, which was a very interesting experience. Excellent project, really highlighted that excellence comes in all colors.
That's right.
Ken, you know what came to mind when Elizabeth Duncan Hawker was speaking? Servant leadership.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, it seems to me that's where we all need to be in some shape, matter, or form.
Amen. Amen. Hey,
Thank you.
I don't want to put anyone, amen. I don't want to put anyone in the spot, but Roberta, is there anything you want to say or that you haven't said, or Matthew, anything you want to say before we sign off this morning? I'll let you guys go, and then I'll give my questions and we'll figure out where we go from here.
I just wanted to chime in. I was raised in a very white community. I married a Hispanic man, and I have two biracial niece and nephew. And until you have experienced life through their eyes or with them, you have no idea the amount of racism there is in America. I mean, I went to a restaurant with my niece and nephew in Tennessee, and I could not believe how they were treated. I went with my niece and nephew who are white to the very same restaurant, and it was amazing the difference in the treatment. And I can go in a car with white people to the border, and we are treated so different than if I go with my husband and his kids to the border. You do not understand the racism in America until you actually experience it. It is so unbelievable. So like I said, I come from a very white, I was in a school with all whites. We had one Native American person in our school. So until you actually experience it, you have no idea what it's like. So, and I never met a Black person until I went to college. So it's so there. And just to wrap your arms around it and make change, I'm so for this. I don't know how we do it, but I every day I try to make a difference in someone's life, whether it's just be kind. And I really think that the servant leader, like they said, is so important. So
thank you. Matthew, I'll let you caused this shenanigan, so I'll let you have the final word today.
I'm not going to apologize for starting it, but
no, you nor should you.
I want to piggyback just real quick off what Tom said. I think a crucial accountability, and there's another one from Stephen Grundy called Influencer. If you get a chance to read the book Influencer, it gives you a way to look at any change issue from a very well-rounded point, so you can maybe hit all the different bases. So I'll just throw that out there.
That's great. All right. Does everyone have a piece of paper and a pencil handy? Give me a thumbs
go
up.
for it.
Okay. So first of all, I want to thank all of you for participating today. I honestly didn't know what to expect, other than it felt to me like the right thing to do to continue the dialogue. And as Robert said, I didn't think we'd finish the conversation today, but I was willing to have the conversation today. So what I'd like everyone to think about are 5 things, okay? Number 1, and Elizabeth, you have already done this, so you get a gold star. But if there's an article or another resource that you're aware of that you haven't mentioned, again, Matthew, you can send me the listing for the book. Whatever it is, I'm more than willing to be a vessel and sending that out to everyone. It seems an easy one that all of us can get more educated at this point, and maybe more educated quickly at this point. So that's number one. Number two, a number of you have been on other coffee sessions that we have done. And I'm curious to get your reactions to, are they good, bad, indifferent, you hate them, you love them? That would be helpful. Third is the question that Robert raised. What level of interest might you have in continuing something about this topic? Would you be interested in, and I'll just be honest, I haven't thought it through completely, but you know, I have colleagues that do this work, and you know, in a 2-hour or half-day session, or maybe, as Robert was sort of inferring, maybe we get together semi-regularly as a group to just talk about it. Whatever it is that you're interested in, just tell me, what are you interested in? And then I can try to determine what we can do. I will tell you again, you'll never hear me, never complain about being busy in our business. Never. But the good news is our cup runneth over. And so I had to make a decision last week that, again, no regrets about doing these coffee sessions, but continuing to do them and spend the time of staff developing the PowerPoints and marketing them, and having Komori be a producer and not charging for them. I just said, what are we doing? We just have to do, our commitment has to be our current clients. So I don't regret doing this 1,000,000%, but I don't know, just honest, what's the right answer for us. And if you have any ideas about what interest you might have, and the fourth question is, what might that look like? I mean, do we do it free? Do we charge for it? I honestly don't know. I'm just being honest. And then the last thing, I think, comes back to what Robert and Roberta said about ACTION. ACTION. So I'm curious to hear, what actions are you taking, and what are some ideas of actions that we all might take to help either provide support to people who, as Elizabeth talked about, her kids who are being of service, and what parent wouldn't be concerned about their kids being in the police department today, or Matthew, who's trying to advise the senior leaders, hey, if you're not willing to be authentic about this, maybe you shouldn't do that video, or that, whatever it is. So just think about what actions you take. And if you send me an email, I can promise you I'm not willing to do nothing. I'm willing to do something. It's clear to me, again, you don't have 12 people show up, when everyone's busy for no reason. So I'm not unconscious of the need to do something. I'm just being honest. I just don't know what it is. And Komori left the call because she had other things to do, but I'm a big believer in, Matthew, you may have heard me say this, but I'm a big believer in business of under promising and over delivering. And so I don't want to commit to anything today. I want to think about it. And if you have any thoughts about what would be helpful to you, what would you sign up? Again, some of you have skills. Maybe you'd be saying, Ken, I'd facilitate a session, or I don't know what's possible. So with that, I'm grateful to all of you. I mean it, for spending some time to talk about this important issue. I do think, for those people who say there's not systematic racism in our country, it's insane. It's insane. And I do think, as a country and/or our partners in Canada, Celeste, we have to talk about this. It's an important issue. So with that, if anyone has a final word, I'm all ears, but I'm grateful to all of you for spending part of your day with me and the rest of us.
Thank you, Ken.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right,
Thank
everybody.
Thank you, Ken.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right. Adios, everyone. Have a good rest of the day.
You
Bye.
too.
You
All
too.
right. Thanks.